Welcome to the Brookie Bite Podcast, where we bite into Magic the Gathering news and just have some plain old fun. I'm your host, Kyle Brookins, aka BrookieCookieMagic. So ready your snacks, relax, let's bite into some magical goodness. Alrighty. Welcome to technically episode 3 and 4, because this is going to be split up.
Math.
Yes, math is fun. My friend Ben Heinl, again, is here. Again, go follow his page, Ben Buys Beverages. He apparently has a very successful Four Loko video going on, right?
Yeah, I can only explain like 4 or 5 of the views. The rest of y'all. And if it was you, thank you. Sincerely. Which reminds me I need to do another video. Perhaps tonight in my house of no air conditioning. Again.
Oh. Good thing we're in the music room with a fan, right?
Indeed.
I probably should turn that off, but oh well. All right, so we talked about our kind of first things about our first impressions of Bloomburrow. We can cut that out.
My dad.
We'll cut that out. All right, 3, 2, 1. All right, so we first episode we talked about Bloomburrow and our first impressions of it all, and now we have actually played all the pre-cons, right?
In theory.
Seen it in mass.
I've seen them in action. I got to play one. But yes.
So we're actually going to talk about really how we feel about the decks, our goals with them, and then we're actually going to suggest cuts and ads. You're cutting ads, Ben?
My cutting ads.
And you're cutting ads.
I've got my ads. I've got cuts for everything except for the first deck you have on the list. So that means I'll just let you talk first.
Alrighty. So let's start with probably debatably one of my favorites, top 2 very much, if not number 1. We're going to talk about the Family Matters deck. So that's the Jeskai with the bird Zinnia. And the entire time we call it the birds deck, but there was like no birds in the deck other than the commander. So I got to play this one game only. And once you see it, or if you haven't played it or see it, hopefully I don't ruin too much, it's really just a 1 power army. That's how I think about it. Yeah, you got your birds, but you got the 1/1 spirits. Zinnia wants 1 power. That's it. Unfortunately, with Magic, there's a lot of 1/2s, 1/3s with very beneficial ETBs or effects to go on. And if you don't even use those there are still, you get your 2/2s, your 3/3s that have very beneficial things, but that's where the offspring mechanic will come in, because not only will you'll have 2 copies of a really good card, but one's the full power, one's the 1/1. But that's really how I view the deck. What's your point of view of the deck?
All right, well, I neither played with nor against this particular deck, so my comments are all based just on reading the deck list. But that said, I prefer my tokens to be of 1 or 2 types, so I can double down on all my tribal bonuses. And I know that's not the right word anymore. And this deck has got all sorts of tokens. So, as a personal quirk that makes me a little twitchy, it is also full of enter the battlefield tap lands. Another thing that really gets me. I'd rather have basic lands over lands that enter play tap. It slows you down terribly. And I know all pre-cons of all sets do that, so I'm just kind of complaining to the choir, as it were, but still, I enjoy the idea behind the deck. I like creatures that are armies in a can. You play it and it brings friends, or you swing with it and more friends magically appear. That's great. Like Myriad is a great mechanic. That said, there's a handful that are not in this deck. Probably because you can only have 100 cards. And at some point, They got to showcase the new ones over the old.
And we can complain about. They also want to do reprint values. So like in the Family Matters deck, the Helm of the Host reprint isn't that.
Oh
one.
no, and that's great, and that's a ridiculous card that not enough people kill on site, even though they should.
So that's also probably why it's a little bit different. There's weird cards, but we can complain about that. So we're going to go through our top cuts and top adds. I'm going to go first. My first cut, I would actually cut the alternate commander, Arthur Marigold Knight. It's like a 4/5 with haste. Essentially, when you attack, you get to put down a creature on the field. So you do an ETB effect, but it has to go away at the end of the turn or end of the combat. That makes it more, in my view, that's more of a blink commander, a Jeskai blink commander. So you get multiple ETB things, which can benefit Xenia. But again, how I'm framing this is I want to make this a 1/1 army or a 1/3 army. I want this to be a 1-power army. And flashing out creatures that not really 1/1, not my style. Arthur would be more powerful in a different style of deck that's not this Xenia deck. So that's my number 1 cut. Next one, there's actually Restoration Angel. So again, that goes into the next. Everyone knows Restoration Angel. It's like, it blinks. It's a creature and you blink. Again, my complaint was that what I just said. Like, I don't want to blink my creatures as much. The deck doesn't support a blink mechanic. It probably could if he was restructured a little bit, but Xenia doesn't really go off with that one. Or you have any agreement or disagreement on that, Ben?
Yeah, with Blink, you really need to double down and just put so much.
Yeah, and Xenia doesn't double down.
All of these pre-cons are scattered. It's like, here's a little bit of ideas for 2 or 3 different options. I'll talk about this a little bit more in depth, like with the Squirrel deck, and it's wannabe aristocrats, but not quite. I mean, so depending on the route you take, your redesign of this deck, that's really going to dictate what comes and goes. In a vacuum, Restoration Angel is pretty neat, but if there's nothing worth blinking and just the cost alone, if I blink something with Offspring, now I'm still paying even more mana just to get the Offspring trigger, which is the whole point of the exercise is Offspring. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's where I'm kind of going with it. There's another card called Shield Broker, and it's I think it's a new Campana card, or what it looks like. When it ETBs, you put a shield counter on a target non-commander commander creature, and then you get to steal it. So it's a card that steals someone else's creature. That would be great in Don Rodriguez or any other of those Grixis or any other blue where you steal other people's creatures. I have no idea why it's in a one power 1 army style deck. Just makes no sense other than just give you answers. But you could have more answers. There is a card that gives all 1/1s can't be are unblockable. It's Tetsuo, the original Tetsuo, the Fugitive.
He's in here.
Yeah, that's a way better card than Shield Broker. The number 4, you said it had been all the tap lands. There's so many tap lands, and I really, really, really hate like the thriving blanks. The taps for blue and color you name. I really, really, really hate those. So I have to agree with you on those. Really, any of the tap lands, I just do not like. Come at me, bro, about the Surveil lands. I just don't like them. They serve their purpose in a style of deck. I don't want a Surveil land in like everything I own. The last one is just simply Inferno Titan. ETBs, or you attack, you deal 3 damage to 1, 2, or 3 targets. That's just a really janky removal creature. To me, it's a big threat, and then you could distill extra damage. It's really weird when you can Blasphemous Act or Lightning Bolt, or you can get cheaper or just as expensive cards that do way better at the removal aspect of it all.
In another deck, Inferno Titan is great, especially if you do nonsense like I do, and you put something like Curiosity on it, and then you target 3 different things for 1 point of damage each and draw 3 cards. Then it's awesome. So I guess in that case, you could add Curiosity to this deck if you want to keep Inferno Titan in. But then it goes even further off theme because the theme is to make tokens.
It's a token deck. It's a 1/1 token deck. So that's why it's a removal, but you're just better to getting a lightning bolt or lightning strike and having better time doing 3 damage for removal. And Blasphemous Act is the thing. And if you have a lot of tokens, it's just red. Now we're all equal.
And all your tokens are dead.
Yes. All right. Now for some ads. This is actually so my first cut was the alternate commander for this deck, but now my first ad is actually the alternate commander from Modern Horizons. It's Kaith, Famed Mechanist. Jeskai 1. She's like a 3/3. When she enters, she fabricates a 1. So automatically, she's like 3/3. I don't have it on my notes, her power toughness, but as soon as she enters, she fabricates. So you get a 1/1 servo, already on theme for Zinnia. But if you tap 2 and tap her, you get the choice to populate or proliferate. And obviously, in a token deck, you want to populate. And she's 4 mana to populate. In 4 mana, you can fabricate. Next turn, you can tap 4 mana. And if you get untappy things, you can populate more tokens, which just benefits Zinnia. So this alternate commander from the energy deck, fits way better to me with Zinnia than Arthur Marigold Knight. And I like Arthur Marigold Knight. I think he's really cool, really powerful, but just doesn't go along with her. Next one is definitely not a 1/1, and I know a bit hypocritical, but this is just a great creature draw card. Welcoming Vampire. It's like it's a 2/3 flyer. Anything with
I know Welcoming Vampire.
Is it power 2 or less? Yes, power 2 or less. You draw a card. Offspring that bad boy. You gain 2 card draws a turn, and then you got a flyer with a beefy enough flyer. Can't really go wrong. Also, I would say like most of these are under $10. They're really some of them are around $6. We can say it again if you're doing token debt. Anointed Procession. Osier Talk. Those.
I mean, there's certain very pricey cards
They're really good
that
for
everybody
a reason.
automatically thinks of, and that's exactly why they cost so much money. But
we kind of stayed away from all that.
I mentioned one because I have it, and otherwise, but yeah.
But I say that, and so my third one is because it triggers interest effects. So there's a lot of 1/3s, those really weak powerful cards, but they have really good effects. Have those enter abilities. And do all the reprintings. This card has gone down. Panharmonicon. I remember when that card was $10 to $15 when I got into Magic. Now it's like down to $5.
Good card.
That would go really good in here, especially the Offspring triggers. Wouldn't that's the ET? Oh
yeah, Offspring.
Yeah, Offspring more. The fourth one. This comes from Ixalan. Really good deck. I know it did a lot of good stuff in Standard for a little bit, but it's a Num Pakal 1000th Moon, so it's $1.82 for this copy. At least that's what Architect was saying when I was going through this.
All right, fair.
So when you attack with one or more non-known creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on a Nim Pakal. And side note, Zinnia is base power 1, so you can put +1/+1 counters on things, and he'll still read because he's reading base power 1. Then create X/1/1 colorless gnome artifact creatures tokens tapped and attacking equal to the number +1/+1 counters. So if you can have this card out for a long time, or you have Kaith out and proliferate, you're eventually gonna have a bunch of 1/1s out here, really easy. My last one. This is definitely my last one I would add. Really good in Standard from the little bit I have played with this. I love this card, War Leader's Call from Karloff Manor. Creatures get +1/+1, and when a creature enters this enchantment, deals 1 damage to each opponent.
Oh, well, yeah. Here's the deal. I had never heard of it till I'm reading the notes here, so I looked it up. That is a fine card, right up my particular alley. I'm a big fan of red-white decks that attack. red-white decks with armies in a can, and this helps out with both. And how lovely is that?
It's like about $5 or $6 card, so I was still say in the realm of budget or a little bit expensive. But we're not playing. It's only expensive $5 because it's for standard. So all you really need is one.
Yeah, and it's EDH, so all you really need is one.
Yeah.
Per deck. But
so that's what I would drop. That's what I would cut and add in.
Okay.
Just 5. I think I could cut like 15 more. But those are just the big ones I wanted to get rid of and add in.
That's fine. All right. Now, I didn't even get 5 to cut, and that's because this was the last deck I was doing in the notes. And the ones I found, I'm now second-guessing 2 of them, and I'll explain why in a moment. But Fortune Teller's Talent, if you look at it, it can go away because, yay, I'm looking at the top card of my library. If I'm going to play blue library manipulation and card draw, I'm going to do something a whole lot more than just look. And then pay an extra 4 and maybe play cards from the top. I mean, it's not worth it in my opinion. Not for what this deck that wants to attack you with a bunch of tokens and maybe blink things in and out of existence wants to do. It's in here to be a rare, to fill out a series, to make the deck have a new card. Then I started listing creatures that by themselves have all right enter the battlefield abilities, like Inspiring Overseer, ooh, a life in a card, or Spirited Companion, ooh, a card. And they're tiny, and that's all they do because I didn't read the commander closely, which gives all of the other cards in the deck offspring. So with that in mind, I started second guessing because then suddenly paying 2 mana for a 1/1 that draws you a card isn't a bad deal when you're then making the offspring token for it. So I'd have to do a lot more effort on that, and I apologize. But I do have 5 cards. I did all that stuff earlier. It's the cuts that I had issues with. And the first card that I would find room for is Equilibrium. It's a blue enchantment for blue 1, and it reads, whenever you play a creature spell, this is 7th edition texting, I'm sure it's been retemplated, but whenever you play a creature spell, you may pay 1 colorless. If you do, return target creature to its owner's hand. I like this because it lets you recast your stuff, and you can use it to remove troublesome blockers or other annoyances that your opponent has cheated into play.
That is really good to even out the field, making the blue, because a lot of the cards I said they were white and red. White and red. There was not a lot of blue. That's a good blue card. That's not counterspell.
Yeah, well, I know how to be a jerk with blue. I just choose not to because I'd rather be a jerk in other colors. Speaking of other colors, we have a red one that you all probably thought about. Impact Tremors. Not certain I have to read it because it's kind of like War Leader's Call without the white or the creatures getting +1/+1. I mean, if you're spamming the field with tokens and you're in red, you should run this common that costs red 1 to damage everyone.
Imagine having both on the field.
And both on the field. Another way to spam, now this one's a little bit more expensive, but it's under 10, I believe, because it's been reprinted a few times, is Cloudstone Curio. It's a lovely artifact for 3, which means Sun Titan can dig it back out of your graveyard when your opponents inevitably kill it. Anyhow, whenever a non-artifact permanent enters the battlefield under your control, you may return another permanent you control that shares a permanent type with it to its owner's hand. Which means, again, you'll be just bouncing stuff to your hand. And yeah, that's more mana intensive than blinking it. Oh, but there's a lot more advantage to it, in my opinion. Plus, it's a fun card, and it's almost automatic.
And you'll be getting more of the ETB figure benefit out of it all more than anything. A lot more consistent than Blink.
This deck thrives on ETBs. The next card is Alrund's Epiphany. This is a sorcery that you can either foretell for blue 4 or just hardcast for blue 5. And it does 2 things. 1, it creates 2 1/1 blue bird creature tokens with flying. Yay, more tokens. And 2, it lets you take an extra turn. So, and then you exile the Epiphany. I mean, extra turns are only bad, typically in Simic decks, because they take all the turns. Then it sucks. But a one-off, it can be useful to just buy that crucial round. The last card I'd recommend, because of all these tokens, especially for people playing Maskwood Nexus, is Coat of Arms. This has got to be one of my favorite artifacts for creature decks. For those unaware, it's a 5-drop artifact, and most copies have really bad art, but there's a couple good ones. Regardless, it reads each creature, not each creature you control, each creature, so you count everybody's.
It's group hug.
Gets +1/+1 for each other creature in play that shares a creature type with it. And if you're spamming the field with tokens upon tokens, they're all looking at each other. Yeah, and then your buddies are playing tokens upon tokens and other things. Suddenly, A, it makes the Cathar's Crusade math look easy. And B, it quickly spirals out of control. And that's really the point of a multiplayer game, is a bunch of nonsense that other people didn't plan for. And in my opinion, by the way, the 7th edition Coat of Arms is the best art. And I know this because I had a bit too much to drink one night and I bought the white border one, not the very expensive foil black border version. Beautiful art, 7th edition Coat of Arms by Alexander Gregory.
So,
but that's what I'd add.
Oh yeah.
And I got to revise what I would cut. But
it'll be fine. Let's go on to the next deck. I'll let you start. But
all right.
But apparently, we both played this.
All right. This is the only deck I got to play, and this is the Peace Offering, the Group Hug Bant deck featuring Miss Bumbleflower. Anyhow, and once I figured out its strategy, because I went into it kind of blind, besides rabbits, and the strategy I determined was to add +1/+1 counters to the commander, and then always be drawing cards with it because you're casting 2 spells a turn. I did all right. Squirrels was on the table as well, and that won, unsurprisingly. But I had fun. I did everything you would expect me to do, to include loving the new art on the reprints. And I also love the sub-theme of the deck, which is a handful of cards that read, do thus and such, and you win the game right out. I think there's at least 3 in there that do that. There's some frog, and there's an enchantment, and Triskaidekaphile. Anyhow, that's nice. And as soon as I'd play one of those cards, everybody would panic, even though I was nowhere near meeting the win con. But that's a great way for a group hug deck to win. I mean, presuming that your group hugginess doesn't feed combos to your opponents and they win before you can. But the deck ramped, as green does, drew lots of cards like blue does, and it removed lots of things, as white does. So it performed as advertised as a group hug deck, and I died last, which is pretty good for group hug.
Oh, yeah. I also played it, but I actually won my pod. We didn't have squirrels. We had Bello and the Family Matters deck. I won. I did the same thing. Now, I did not go into any of the spit blind because I make this content and I make the tiki talks and all that. So, I had to go into a little bit deeper to pick my favorites and get my 200 views on a funny TikTok that no one watched. But so I didn't go into the blind. So I knew very well what I was going to do with Miss Bumbleflower, and did get a little lucky with the draws. And I did the same strategy Ben did, which is cast 2 spells, draw cards, put everything on Miss Bumbleflower. Excuse me. I also got lucky with Forgotten Ancients, which is every time opponent casts, every time we cast a spell, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then on your upkeep, move as many +1/+1 counters to any target. So by two turns with Forgotten Ancients out, I had 14 +1/+1 counters on Miss Bumbleflower.
Very nice.
Yeah, my wife was playing with us, and I did 18 commander damage myself before she realized I was a problem, which was fun, and it had a lot of that white protection too that I was able to just held my hand. It's like I knew they thought it was a problem, and I kept getting answers, but they were answers that did benefit me that kind of ruined everything. I think my best thing that I did that night with Miss Bumbleflower is I'm on the back end. Kayla kind of was coming up, my wife playing Bello, and I did that Octomancer where I gifted her octopus, and I also gifted me the octopus. So she did the damage. I had right control, so I prevented all damage to me, only to me. That's because the key word. Put that down, gain some life. But that octopus that I put on a 1+1+1 earlier, was now it's a 9, was actually going to Austin, our friend. And at this point, they were both at like 7 health. Like they were at 7, I was at 10. So I casted that right control, which triggered Bumbleflower, and I went, okay, Austin, draw a card, and then I'm gonna put the +1/+1 counter on the octopus, making a 10/10 flyer that he could not block at all because Zinnia was on the field, but he was tapped. Also, she's vigilant, so that makes it really cool too. Because you put that many +1/+1 counters, now you got a big.
Oh, see,
I
totally missed that part. She stayed tapped because I would just, put counters on her. She flies now. Swing.
Yeah,
and then I would leave.
She's vigilant too.
Look, I had to tell that whole game was full of misreadings of every single card.
Yeah, you were teaching somebody how to play the game.
Yeah, so we had 3 decks that were playing open hand.
There was a brand new player.
This was the first time they had played, yes. So things ran a little bit slow. There was misreadings because for the new cards. I always forget about vigilance anyhow.
Yeah, it's fine.
But
it was a fun group hug. I kind of view her now as more like I can group hug, but we're going to do card draw group hug because that's how I think would benefit with again those the Tristodectophile and the Toad because those are having cards in hand to win.
Yes.
So she's a way better queen than Itinerant Wizard, the first rabbit group hug.
Yeah, I vaguely remember him. Yeah.
He's in the deck. You tap it and like you and opponent draw a card.
Yeah, that sounds right.
But they added green, so now you can get the protection of green and the ramp of green. And I did like Tempt of Discovery too, and they took it. And I like put down a whole bunch of land.
Tempt with Discovery can make some players angry because the right play is for nobody to get any land, and you force somebody to pay 4 to fetch 1 land. The reality is everybody goes for land. So with that in mind, the proper move is to go for whatever strip mine variant is in your deck because it gets non-basics. And then you blow up whatever cool lands got dug up out of the library. Those Gaia's Cradles, the Cabal Coffers, whatever other nonsense got fetched up, and you kill it dead, and then you end up with parity. Everybody's out the lands that they fetched. But it makes people so upset when they say, no, I don't. And then you take a land anyhow because it's free land and you'll deal with it later.
So how about you start with your cuts and adds?
All right. This one I played, so some of them I had experience with. First one I'd cut is Octomancer because on the surface it's great. Ooh, we all get, or me and one other player get an octopus. But the way it reads, the way I read it, it's only giving away and taking things if other tokens come into play. Which means that many times it's going to be a whiff. So now I have a lame creature and I've got an octopus token until it's dead. Which is typically when the other person with the octopus token swings it at me. So it doesn't do nearly as much as one would hope. What else doesn't do very much is Bloomburrow Elder. It's just, in 5 colors, I'd consider it and then still cut it. But in 3, it can definitely go. Realm Cloaked Giant, because both of its options are overpriced. Sweepers are good, and big creatures can be good. Put them together can be great, but not in this particular case. All right. Sphinx of Enlightenment is a neat creature, and really so is Body of Knowledge. But not in this deck. If the goal is to make your commander really big, these I don't think you need. You need room for other fun things. So that just means I'm going to try to trade for Sphinx of Enlightenment from Kyle when all things are said and done. Now,
you play with my deck, so I already have it, actually.
So, what I would add Feldegriff. And if you've been playing forever, and by that I mean since Ice Age, you would be aware, alliances technically. Feldegriff's a legend, and it looks like a hippo with green wings. Costs 1 white, blue, green, and it's a 4/4, and it's got a whole bunch of abilities. You can tap white and give it flying till end of turn, and an opponent 2 life. Or you can tap blue, and you bounce Feldegriff to your hand, and target opponent may draw a card. I don't know why they wouldn't. Or green, I can give them trample until end of turn. And then I give an opponent a hippo token. And that token's a 1/1 green hippo. Just a fun, huggy card. And plus, then it would have been reprinted and probably with new art. Now, I said get rid of Realmed Cloak Giant. And now we're down a sweeper. So there's really 2 options for sweepers. One I really like is Winds of Abandon. Typically it's white 1, or you can overload it for 4 white. It's a sorcery. Exile target creature you don't control. For each creature exiled this way, its controller searches their library for a basic land card, and then they put them on the battlefield tapped. And then, of course, they shuffle. Overload hits all of your opponent's creatures. And yes, they get land out of it. That's very huggy. Yay, land. And it's not your fault if they don't run basic lands. That's entirely on them for making that poor deck construction choice. And it exiles. There are so many troublesome creatures that just need to go away. I like that. However, you may instead choose to lean into the whole gifting cards thing. And there's a white card in Bloomburrow called Starfall Invocation for 3 white, another sorcery, which lets you gift a card. And then you destroy all creatures. And if the gift was promised, you get to return 1 creature card put into your graveyard this way to the battlefield under your control. Which is pretty useful. Now, some other options that I would add, because, they're great. I would play the Wall of Shards. It costs 1 white from Cold Snap. It's a snow creature, and it's a wall. And it has Defender and Flying, and it's a 1/8. It's got a really big butt. And it has a cumulative upkeep of giving 1 opponent life. And if you're unfamiliar with cumulative upkeep, that means the first guy gets 1, next time it's 2, then 3, 4, etc. And I would add this because 1, it's cheap, 2, it's very politically huggy, and 3, if I'm killing you with commander damage, I don't care how much extra I've given you. Plus, it needs a reprint, so I can have one.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing, 15 damage in the air with a bunny.
Yes. Now, there's an aura is my next card called Psychic Possession. It's blue out of one of the Ravnicas. I think that's the Dissension symbol. Regardless, it costs 2 blue. It's an aura. You enchant target opponent. And then you skip your draw step. And then whenever an enchanted opponent draws a card, you may draw a card. So yeah, you skip your normal draw, but the Bumbleflower group hug stuff has you drawing extra cards anyhow. Especially when you're making other people draw cards. I mean, it's win-win-win. I love it. And yes, I stole the idea from, one of those YouTube videos where people play Magic against each other. Somebody did that in their group hug deck. And I was like, oh, clever.
Oh, yeah, watching the other ones do stuff
and
and
see
their
their
creativity.
With these, it was somebody with, I think, a Feldegriff deck, Psychic Possession, and then was forcing draws and then cashing in. It was lovely.
Again, gives you other people's ideas how they build decks. Like, ooh, I want that in my deck.
Oh, yeah. All right, but yeah, that's what I would find needs to come and go. So what you got, Kyle?
All right, so the stuff I would definitely cut, there is a 6 CNC artifact in that deck called Coveted Jewel. It's just way too expensive. You do draw 3 cards and, get it taps for 3 mana, but it's just so
with the bigger rocks like that, they're not ramp.
Yeah.
Don't think of them like ramp. Don't look at them like ramp.
But again, if you're thinking of 6 for 3 cards, that's again not worth it when Brainstorm's a thing.
Well, but if you're not playing blue, it's great.
Yeah,
But regardless,
definitely get rid of it. Just not my cup of tea. Coveted Jewel should have been in Bellow.
oh yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about Bello in
Yeah.
a bit.
Uh, Girapir Ori.
Sure.
Yeah, that's
I mispronounced both of them. Go.
it's four for a ramp card that doesn't help with card draw because it's if you draw a card and you have none, then you draw 3. I mean, let's be very honest. If you're in blue and you're having Bumbleflower, you should not have less than like 3 cards the entire game.
And that was one of the cards I actually got to put into play. Played it early, like on turn 3. Ooh.
It's a great ramp card. It's a great ramp card, but they have so many other enchantments in the deck that allow you to play do the group hug additional land thing.
Well, and I was looking at it because I was thinking similar thoughts. It's like I'm never going to run out of cards, but I can make sure my opponents don't either by this whole gift a card. You have a card, so you can shut that off for your opponents, and really you're just playing 4, like you said, so everybody can play an extra land.
Yeah. That's the way you want to see it. That's fine. That's your prerogative. I do not.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it's great, but
Now, my next choice might have a couple people who are real excited about this one because it is the answer to a lot of the treasure token issue that's going on in Commander. I'm going to cut Bloodroot Apothecary, which is the squirrel that's in the deck.
Is it in the squirrel deck as well?
No.
Because that would make sense?
Yeah, because it make complete.
Got it.
So
Noted.
Basically what it does, if anytime anyone sacrifices or uses a token like a treasure, it deals Toxic 2.
Yeah, Toxic 2. Wow.
Yeah, it's a great card.
Dude, if you don't want it, I'll take that.
I know, I'm keeping
What
it.
a great card.
I know, it's a great card. It would make more sense if the group hug was like gifting treasures or, it's an answer. But you're looking at what this whole idea of Bumbleflower and Foxglove does. What's the point of him?
It also looks, though, at the other. It's not just treasure tokens. It's looking at the clues.
Yeah.
And the food.
Yeah, any of those tokens.
And what's the other one? Blood. And I guess gold. Oh, that's interesting.
It's a great card.
Thank you for pointing that out.
It just doesn't. It's an answer. That's going to be a CEDH card, or it's going to be in those high powerful decks. To me, it doesn't make sense. It really,
I know why it's in here. It's in here because of the first part, and it's an excuse to play. Ooh, a new card because this is kind of a chase card.
Yeah, it is.
And if I were desperate, I'd buy the whole deck just to get a card because I've done that in the past.
Things right now, I saw it was for like $9.84.
So all right, $10. Because that's huge.
What's the first line say?
Toxic 2.
Yeah.
And then the very last line, player gets 2 poison counters. Mm-hmm. And it's a green card. And most people play green with Proliferate, especially if I'm handing out poison counters.
Yeah.
So
I'm not saying it's a bad card. Don't by no means. It's an amazing card. I am so lucky to have it that I pre-ordered this before the deck list even came out. And that's how excited I was. I'm very happy. But
funny card.
I just don't think it belongs in Bumbleflower. The next one,
I agree.
Mangara the Diplomat. I think it's just too dependent on attacking when you could really just have, again, a lot more. Blue is full of draw cards.
It is, but I think this is a way to encourage people to attack someone else.
It is.
Without the oppressive feeling of like propaganda and ghostly prison and all that nonsense.
See, I'm that brutal person. I would rather play propaganda. It's cheaper too.
To each their own. But this gains you life.
So does Riot Control. and that's the thing. Like, I played Bumbleflower when I had 14 +1/+1 counters on her. Mangara is not going to alleviate that problem at all. You got 14 +1/+1 counters. I have 18 commander damage, and you're going to give it flying when you play a 1-drop spell. That thing needs to go. Mangara is not going to alleviate that problem. Propaganda will, and Ghostly Prison will, but not Mangara.
Swords to Plowshares will.
Yes, my commander. And Yumi have the same agreement. Realm Cloak Giant.
Is it even good in draft?
No. You're better off, you're just better off with Generous Gift. That's too expensive for not a good payout, but that's way better than this. All right, my ads. I kind of just went down with double down on a couple of things. The first one, Glunch the Bestower, the Baldur's Gate, Selesnya thing.
Oh
now,
yeah.
Now I will say that one would be good with Bloodrot, the apothecary, the Bloodroot apothecary, because you can gift treasures with him.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So if he was the commander, I would put Bloodroot because I'd be gifting that treasure, and it's like, oh look, what are you going to do? You're going to take poison? Oh, okay, great. We're going to proliferate too because it's white. But he's just a good group hug. It's really just to kind of support the. Well, look, I'm just being nice and friendly, and you got Quain. It's nice.
Well, I mean, full disclosure, I've got a Glunch politics deck I'm working on. So.
And I see if you played it, I think you pulled it out once or twice.
Well, no,
so I think you were
fine.
fine.
It's in the 99 of a different deck, but I'm going to focus and make.
Oh, it's in Yalathiel. It's your.
Yes.
That's where I saw it. I didn't notice there's a lot of especially when you're using Bumbleflower. There's a lot of +1/+1 counters, so I put down hardening skills too, so you can definitely help beef her up a little bit more because it's almost if you're doing you're trying to win. How I see it, you're trying to win with the card draw, with the Tristodetrophile and the Toad and all that, but you're gonna have to have an answer. So if you have hardening skills, it's gonna be a lot easier to put Bumbleflower on. If you cast 2 spells a turn and have hardening skills on, you're going to put 4 +1/+1 counters on her in one turn. To be completely honest, and if you have instants in response, she's going to get really big out of hand. So I think she's good. All right, my first 2 of Universe Beyond products that I would put into this deck: Socrates, Athenian Teacher. Have you seen that one from Assassin's Creed?
I know it exists. I haven't actually read what it does.
So the gist of it is tap it, target creature prevents all combat damage, and then draws cards.
I'm laughing because I called it up on Scryfall, and it gave me the Italian version to include the Italian flavor.
So
no, Spanish. I'm sorry. Let me find English.
It's Sokrates.
Yeah, I found it.
That's the gist of it. It's a card draw. It's prevent damage.
With a C, it's what?
It's English.
Trademarked?
I don't know. I think they just wanted to be closer to the Greek spelling, and that's how it's spelled in the Assassin's Creed game.
Fair.
He's really good with that one because you got the 1818 Bumbleflower. Oh, let's just prevent your big creature coming at me, and we're just going to draw cards, and then go from there. I saw him being a little bit more beneficial in that one. That's just me. I'll go ahead and say the other one. The second Doctor from Doctor Who. No maximum hand size. I think it's at your end step. Your opponents may draw a card. If they do, they can't attack you.
How civil of you.
How civil for you. Yeah. Great card. It's like it's blue, white, and 2. No maximum hand size, so it helps out with all the Tristodetrophile and all those things where you really need the card draw and all that. And I think, and the last one, I think even Austin said this one. Our friend Austin, he said Wedding Ring.
Oh yeah, I was looking at Wedding Ring, and now that it's been reprinted multiple times, it's
cheap.
It's within my
buy range.
In my buy range.
So that's a good one because if you're looking at somebody and someone's playing Slivers and you're like, hey, I can help you. You help me out. And like, here's Wedding Ring. We're married now, and then you get to draw cards. So that's a really that probably should if you're going to upgrade one card, like cut one card and get one card. That's definitely Wedding Ring would be it.
Yeah. Anywhere between about 3 to about 9, depending on the version you want.
Mm-hmm.
Lovely. That's a great card.
Yep.
Add that to my to get list. Thank you.
You're welcome.